Part 47. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 462. Reunion. Lu Jun coughed hard and patted his brother's head and said, "Xiao, hate me if you want to hate." He looked at the distant sky outside the grass gate, and the sky was blue like a lake. He said lightly, "Master 8 is as gracious to us as we are, and I can't even report death. I'm not afraid of death. What if death is caught by those immortal masters? But you know, those immortal masters won't let us die, they will torture us in various ways," inquired about Master 8, and even used us to force Master 8 to come forward. After Lu Jun said, he suddenly turned his head and yelled at his brother, "We would rather die. It wouldn't hurt Master 8, you know." There was a drop of tears in Lu Yi's big eyes. He bit his white lips, nodded with tears, and calmed his emotions. He said, "Brother, I was wrong, but I'm not afraid of death myself. I want to with her younger sister. She hasn't been able to leave a man and a half woman to Master 8, and Auntie Chen, if she has a length of 3 2 shorts, we will become ghosts and we will not be able to tell Master 8. Lu Jun's eyes flashed, stroking his brother's hair, and said softly, "Xiao, I'm sorry, I blame you wrongly." Lu Yi smiled hard, "Brother, if the sister can really save everyone, go back and marry the little widow of Diao family. You are also in your 30s and it is time to get married. I can see that. The little widow is very interesting to you." Lu Jun laughed, "Isn't the little widow's sister very interesting to you? When you are all right, you will marry her, and you will be in your 30s. Lu Yi shook his head, "No, I'm afraid I can't wait any longer." Cough, "I know you like little widows too. You're afraid that one more person knows the secrets, which will be bad for Master 8, so you have always restrained yourself, so I also kept a long distance from her younger sister. Our lives were all from Master 8, and it was okay to never marry a wife in my life, at least to live a good life with Master 8. Lu Yi said that he was obviously weak. He closed his eyes weakly and breathed the air with his nose hard, as if he stopped, he could no longer breathe. Lu Jun finally burst into tears, shaking his brother's body vigorously, and shouting, "Xiao, don't die. We will have a rescue, Master 8 will come back. When that happens, we will marry the little widows and sisters." Lu Jun finally cried. At this moment, a young man suddenly flashed into the outside, his eyes filled with tears. He rushed in and knelt down, rubbing his head against Lu Jun and Lu Yi on the bed. "Big brother and second brother, for me, don't die, don't marry a wife. Give up everything for me. For me to serve my mother. This kind of righteousness, I have nothing to pay for this life. Today, I will recognize you as my brother, please do refuse." It was Ye Kong who went back and forth. It was so coincidental that he just took off with the take-off sword and didn't go far enough. Then he looked at the mountain road out of the mine. When he came, he muttered with a flying sword to level the mountain road, so that the miners could save a lot of time when they went in and out. But he was hanging above the mountain stream, but he heard someone coughing on the mountain beside him. He muttered, "Is the corpse poison cleared up? Is there anybody here who needs treatment?" I just got closer and just heard the conversation of the brothers of the Lu family. Tears burst into tears, and I rushed in. Seeing an immortal teacher rushing in, he also scratched his head, startled Lu Jun, and quickly waved his hand, "Immortal teacher, you recognize the wrong person, we don't know any Ye Kong." "Brother, it's me." Ye Kong pressed Yi Rongden's medicinal power, and suddenly appeared in front of Lu Jun in his original appearance. "Master 8. Master 8 is really back," Lu Jun wept with joy. Finally waited for this day. I finally waited until the day of reunion. Xiao, open your eyes soon. Master 8 is back." Lu Yi had fallen into a coma at this moment and could not answer. Ye Kong hurried up, and his heart was okay. If he came back one step later, he would really regret his life. After sucking Lu Yi's corpse poison, he fed him another pill, and Yekong wanted to treat Lu Jun again. Lu Jun urged him to let others treat him first. It's okay. I'm back. No one will be okay. Yekong held Lu Jun's hand tightly. Next door, in a shabby bed in the hut, Chen Juniang was the most ill. She could only lie in bed and panted. Feng Xiniang sat aside crooked weakly. Xiao Hong waited. Looking at the three weak people, Lu Qin breathed a sigh of relief. She knew that if there was no miracle, everyone would die. She can't let them die. Chen Juniang was the 8th young master's mother. If she had 3 longs and 2 shorts, how could she be worthy of the young master? A hint of wind from the top of the mountain blew through the window, shaking her long hair, and her brain was awake again. No, only by working hard can we save them. Lu Qin resisted the cough, walked to the table, picked up the pen and paper, but she stopped again. What kind of rune do you draw? What kind of rune can you cure? Lu Qin didn't know how many times she picked up the pen, but every time, she had no choice but to put it down. She smiled bitterly. Although she was awful, she could still feel that her face was so beautiful. As usual, she put down her pen again. She didn't know what symbol to draw, and Master 8 hadn't taught her to treat the corpse poison. Master 8. Where are you? Come back soon, Ziokin me, I really can't stand it. Lu Qin was shouting in his heart. Perhaps God heard her call. The room across the corner suddenly heard Lu Jun's voice, as if to say that Master 8 had returned. Lu Qin was happy, but then shook his head. This place is too remote. How could Master 8 find this place? But then, Lu Jun's excited cry came again, and Lu Qin finally rushed out of the hut like crazy. When Yekong walked out of Lu's brother's hut, he saw the standing girl at a glance. She had not seen her for a few years. She had grown taller and more beautiful. At that moment, the wind on the top of the mountain was soft and gentle, and the grass around the house was softly moved. After a short meal, both of them accelerated their pace, getting faster and faster. In the middle of the courtyard, they hugged tightly together. Yekong returned and they were all saved. I haven't seen it for a few years. Lu Qin has grown up and matured, and Xiao Hongfeng's figure has become more graceful. Feng Xiniang has not changed much. After all, she has eaten Ding Yan Dan in the southern capital. The old woman even had white hair on her head, and Yekong was still the teenager of that year. This is the difference between monks and mortals. Years and time relentlessly take away the mortal's youth and years, but the monks are in good faith. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 463. Reunion. Fortunately, I caught up with myself. Not only did I catch up with saving them, but I also caught up with the time to save them. Yekong is really afraid of a certain day, when he is still a teenager, his lover is old. Mother, this is the elixir for face treatment. Yekong sent Qinji and Dan, who had been prepared for a long time. It was this elixir that allowed Yekong to practice steadfastly. At the beginning, he dedicated himself to curing his mother's face. This was his first vow to the Kangnan continent. However, I did not expect that the vow was completed, it took so long, and experienced so many sweet and bitter. Chen Juniang took the elixir, and suddenly her nose became sore and choked. How ran, Juniang's face has no black scars. Come back and see Juniang. The face healed, but her husband didn't see it. This was Chen Juniang's biggest regret. In fact, she didn't care about the eyes of others. She only cared about her man's eyes. But all this has gone with the wind, and can no longer look back. Sister, Master 8 is back. This is a happy thing. Let the past go by, Feng Xiniang comforted. Yeah, it's a happy thing. Chen Juniang wiped her tears and smiled again, looking at her son with a smile. At least, the sun is still there. When she put on Qingyandan, it turned out that the black scar disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then Yekong took out Dingyandan and Wajadan again. Chen Juniang smiled bitterly. I will not take this elixir. Mortals will die sooner or later. What does it matter if you live longer or live longer? Yekong said, Mother, the deceased has gone, and the living still have to live. I think Dad also wants us to live happily under Jiquan. People live to have a hope, to pursue a better life, although I can only take out these elixir now, but I can certainly find the elixir that let mortals also have spiritual roots. By then, all of you will be immortal, soar, and be immortals. Hearing that, everyone was excited. Xiao Hong had already noticed the girl Xiao Ying and said, Master 8, this sister is your companion. Feng Xiniang knew Xiao Ying, of course, and suddenly giggled, and smiled that the tall and trembled and looked so delicious. Xiao Ying smiled bitterly, I don't have that blessing, I'm also mortal, and Huang Quan's ancestor preempted, and she has nothing to do with Yekong, this is the old lady's lady. The girls laughed, and Xiao Hong touched Huang Quan's ancestor's head and laughed, Master, master, you apprentice is very cute, you are so brave, you still talk to the old man, he, how old you are, you have no beard. Feng Si Niang even scratched his ears and said, little children just can't get used to it. Call my grandma and call them teacher-in-law. Lu Qin also pinched his mouth and laughed, the kid is just holding on to fun, the meat is soft. Huang Quan's ancestor lived for more than 100,000 years. Whoever spit his face in such a way, he vomited blood and shouted, hey, men and women can't accept it. You should check it, be careful, husband. Turn your face. The crowd was happy again, only Xiao Ying said to him, don't pinch, he is really my husband. Then Yekong asked them why they lived here. It turned out that Chen Juniang and Yekong missed each other. They found that they were one step behind when they were in Andu, so they only had to fight back, and happened to meet the Lu family brothers in Huangzhou. So several people stayed in Huangzhou, during which the brothers of the Lu family also returned to Andu city to listen to the wind, but found that Lu Changqing could not reach them. The brothers of the Lu family knew that it was not good, and they hurried back to Huangzhou. After returning, everyone made a total. Although the new emperor did not dare to treat them, it was difficult to protect those who were immortals from looking for them. Then they left Huangzhou overnight and had no destination. They ran around and encountered many dangerous situations on the road. Fortunately, Lu Qin was a practicing family and had various spells. Everyone was shocked. Finally, he came here and settled down. The brothers of the Lu family went to the iron ore to help the workers, and Lu Qin used a spell to heal the miners. Their family was very much supported by the miners, so they lived like this until now. Oh, you are really suffering this way? Yekong nodded very touchingly, and asked casually, what are the dangers? Could it be that you met the immortal? What's your name? Xiao Hongzui said quickly, you master 8, can't think of it. How can we survive the encounter of the immortal? The danger is the one-headed peak. Little Red Chen Juniang drank softly, and then said to Yekong, oh, those were all a few years ago, and we didn't hurt much. Even if you are an immortal, don't be mortal. Care about it? Zhaizi Mo Runiang, Chen Juniang knows that if Yekong knew that, Dudufeng would be killed and blood flowed into the river. At that time, the palace could be slaughtered by him, not to mention some grass bandits. Chen Juniang didn't want to create more sins. Oh, I respect the law of Lafayette. Yekong laughed. What a mess, let's talk about your situation. Feng Xiniang stood next to Chen Juniang and gave Yekong a glamorous look with a pair of eyes. The touching eyes were so hot that people wanted XX directly. Cooked girls have this style. Yekong swallowed and vomited, and then he talked about his journey and experience. These were close relatives. Yekong didn't hide it. He turned into Li Hezi and went to Yun Fuzong. Ye Kong said lightly, but the girls knew that it was not easy, and they must have passed through many dangers. Of course, the only thing that is concealed is what I saw in the dense cave of King Minggu, those Earth's gadgets, and the secret that he is a human. These are Ye Kong's deepest secrets, which cannot be shared with others, even those who are close to him. Everyone talked for a long time, and Lu Jun and Lu Yi said suddenly, "It's getting late, everyone is hungry. It's too rude here, let's go down the mountain, just as Master 8 and the mine owner know each other again." "That's fine," Ye Kong nodded. "But I have to change back to Li Hezi." When the image of Li Hezi appears, Lu Qin and Xiao Hong both pinch his face playfully, and Chen Juniang even scolded him, "You stupid boy, you just change your appearance, and change it to be more beautiful. Black face, blacker than the miners in our mine." Feng Xiniang laughed, "Sister, our mine is digging iron, he is digging coal, of course, it is going to be black." Everyone went down the mountain with a smile. Ye Kong wouldn't let them call themselves the eighth master. Just call him a son. He's not a young master either. He's a good name. That Diao Xianbin watched the immortal teacher return, although he was puzzled, he was still very happy. The immortal teacher stayed in his house and never left, doing good things with the women in the family every day, and then giving birth to a large group of cultivators. Cool. If Ye Kong knew, he would kick him to death. Every day you are a fairy. Are you a bore for breeding? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 464. 46 4 Smell must be cut. Diao Xianbin only knew when they heard the introduction that the family of the psychic doctor is the family of the immortal. Well, this time, my two nieces also slept with him, that is also a family, and he and Chen Juniang are considered relatives. Then Diao Xianbin arranged their family in the largest courtyard in the miners' village, and invited a chef from Kink village outside Xianxia to cook and dine, and everyone talked as they ate. Sitting at the wine table and looking at everyone with a smile on his face, Ye Kong finally exhaled. "This is the home, this is the warmth of the home, fool, seeing all this, you can rest assured, promised you that I have completed, as for some of these regrets, that is also not what I can do." Ye Kong is the old lady on the left and Lu Qin on the right. Xiao Hong feels that she is far away. She stands behind the table with a wine glass and speaks behind Ye Kong. 8. "Oh, son, have you been hooking up with a woman outside?" Xiao Hong drank a little wine, her face flushed and lovable. Ye Kong haha laughed, "Where can you say that I am as dark as a coal digger, and women spit when they saw me? Che, whoever believes," drool. Xiao Hong nudged Ye Kong angrily, glanced at the sister flowers across the table with her beautiful eyes, and asked, "Why did the owner of the Diao mine treat the two girls stuffed on the table?" This." Ye Kong was unable to return when asked, but Lu Qin said intimately, "Little red sister, the sun is the dragon among men, and the monk who passed God through man, naturally there is a woman in love." Xiao Hong gave him a glance, "Well, you're happy outside, don't know what others miss every day, Ziokan dreams of calling your name." Ye Kong couldn't help feeling a sigh, and said with a long sigh, "All said that the Kangnan continent, humanity is selfish, cruel, and inhuman, and parents and brothers can betray them for their interests. But what I see is not the case, there are Lu Jun Lu Yi Bo Yun Tian, with the affection of you two, all of these make me feel happy and feel that I still live in the world, thank you to everyone I love." Everyone raised their glasses and did it together. After drinking, Ye Kong laughed, got up and pulled up Xiao Hong, and pulled up Lu Qin, and said to everyone, "Well, eat slowly. The three of us will go back to the room first." There was a sudden laugh at the bar table, and Chen Juniang blushed and cursed, "This boy, it's noon now, and he announces it day by day. Why is it so urgent? Feng Xiniang quickly advised, Sister, young people, we don't care, young people, it is inevitable that we are ridiculous, we drink. After Feng Xiniang finished speaking, she looked at the direction of someone's disappearance, and sighed in her heart, hey, it's still good to be young, and now she can go in with Mr. BA to be happy. At this point, I heard someone say, well, now you can talk about what the dangers you have experienced. Although Chen Juniang stopped drinking just now, Ye Kong asked again, the two girls still said. It turned out that here was not far. There were a continuous range of mountains, and the mountains were relatively gentle. However, there were some steep peaks in the low mountains. Because they stood alone, they were called solo peaks. No one knows this one-headed peak among the immortals, but in the secular martial arts, it is like thunder. A group of robbers lived on Duta Peak for many years. The robber's head, Luo Zioki, has high martial arts, is hard-working, and everyone is afraid of the rivers and lakes. Especially, the terrain of Dutufeng is difficult to defend, and remote. It has become a place where officials don't ask. At first, the brothers of the Lu family didn't know the road and didn't know how. They walked into the boundary of Duta Peak and were robbed by the robber of Duta Peak. Fortunately, the brothers of the Lu family have some skills, and Lu Qin, who has practiced the shadow martial arts style for a long time, is even more powerful and repelled the other party to attack again and again. At the same time reported to Luo Zioki on the mountain. Luo Zioki, I heard that there was a beauty and immediately went down the mountain. This Luo Zioki really has high martial arts strength, and his 2 masters and 3 masters are not easy. Lu Qin almost fought his life and borrowed the invisibility, which led to the siege. That Luo Zioki watched them flee, and took out a long green bow and shot an arrow. This arrow actually hit Lu Qin 3 miles away. The most outrageous thing was that Lu Qin was in a stealth state at that time. The arrow shot by this green bow turned out to find Lu Qin by himself. Lu Qin was almost killed by this arrow, rested for 3 months and barely recovered. Ye Kong heard that Lu Qin was almost shot dead, and he felt a deep hatred. Luo Zioki, Dutufeng, I want you all to go to hell. Lu Qin and Xiaohong quickly persuaded that the matter had passed, and then let go. Although Luo Zioki was immortal, but the longbow was evil, it was likely that there was a cultivator behind it, so Ye Kong could endure it. Already. But when the 2 women thought that they had successfully shifted someone's attention, Ye Kong stood up. How can Ye Kong be affectionate if I can't cut this thief? Ye Kong Xiaxian, what he does is just to keep his family safe. If he can't protect his family, what's the use of 11? I have already vowed that if anyone hurts my loved ones, I will cut it off. Hearing Ye Kong is so firm, both women are excited. Yes, this is the 8th master, this is the 8th master in the heart, the loved one, never compromise, love must return, hate must be reported. Love loves to the end, hate to the end. No one can mess with me, Ye Kong. If you dare to mess with me, you have to pay. You take off your clothes and I'll be back when your clothes are all removed. Ye Kong laughed, stepped out of the array, threw Fijian, strode on Fijian, and went straight to Dutufeng. In ancient times, Yu Wenjia cut Huaxian, and now Ye Kong is and destroying his head. Luo Zioki, the death is here. Ye Kong's laughter went straight into Yongxiao, so bold and so happy. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 465. Kill one mountain in 4, 6, 5. During the flight, Ye Kong was not so reckless, he was calculating. Calculate how to leave the one-headed bandit thief alone. The bow and arrow of Luo Zioki must be a magic weapon, otherwise Lu Qin will not break. Ye Kong had finished his calculations and had stood in front of Duta Peak. This peak was really dangerous. Since Guhua Mountain has been on the road, this is probably the case. Dangerous is good, such as easy to defend and difficult to attack, such as advancing and retreating, as long as enough food is stored, no matter how many officers and soldiers come. But there are also treacherous disadvantages. That is, when they encounter powerful force, they have nowhere to run. As long as they keep the mountain road, none can escape. Yekong lowered his flying sword and walked up the steps along the mountain path. Not too far away, he saw that a cottage built of stone barriers was built on top of both sides of the mountain path. However, Yekong is a cultivator, a cultist who builds the base period, and these things cannot take his footsteps at all. I want this mountain to bow its head, I want this water to flow backwards. How can these stone cottages block my way? The robbers who saw this man were not good, all of them yelled at them, some raised their bows and arrows, and some pushed out huge stones. But these could not stop Yekong at all. He took out the flying sword, which was a small sword weapon. It had not been used for a long time. The flying sword became bigger and bigger in the sky, and finally became a giant sword. The pristine white light was chopped off, and the stone cottage was cut in half. Numerous stones, mixed with injured robbers, rolled off the mountain road. Yekong still went up step by step, his footsteps were so easy and steady, his body exuded golden light. No one can stop me. Stones do anti-work, robbers do anti-work, even if there are immortals here, neither. The stones hitting Yekong were all turned into powder, and the robbers passing by Yekong were all thrown into fireball. The lowest level spells can cremate all these residues. When Yekong walked to the cottage, there were no living people anymore. Yekong released the howling wolf king and let it stay on the mountain road. Whether it was going up or down, all were killed. Yekong continued to walk upwards, walking alone on the narrow mountain road, killing people when they saw them, killing one person in 10 steps, leaving nowhere for thousands of miles. Whether it's talking, begging, crazy, desperate, kill them all. Kill them all. Have you ever given mercy to those passing by business trips, those women passing by, or have you raised your hands? No. The wicked need punishment. Apart from that, there is no solution. The scenery on the mountain is good, with trees like shade, wild flowers, white clouds rolling in the distance, and natural scenery in the vicinity. But today must be covered by blood. Deo has already released a strong sense of God. My son, there are 2,208 people on the mountain, 329 people have been killed, and 1,789 people. Kill everything, golden-winged ants, go. Those gold-winged ants flew out of the beast bag, turned into a cloud of gold, and then buzzed away, but people, animals, and even those plants and rocks, were stunned by them. It is possible to scrape the ground 3 feet. Yekong walked up like a satin cloth, listening to Deo's report in his ear, how many died, how many jumped off the cliff, how much he was preparing to resist. Yekong went directly to the top of the mountain. Here was a large group of robbers. Although everyone was holding a weapon, they were panicked in their eyes, and they were already scared. The one-headed peak thief, you stop and kill people. When you get excited, you should get into someone you shouldn't. Now your death is here. Yekong originally thought of using magic instruments, and later thought that he would practice Lushan's claws anyway. When I saw the big yellow hands that appeared out of thin air that day, I caught them when I saw them, and pressed them when I saw them. All the robbers were caught as flesh. Shouting in panic and howling in pain, they rang through the mountain immediately, and those harsh sounds spread very far, even on other peaks and mountains below the mountain. Finally, the thieves outside the hall on the top of the mountain were all killed. Yekong kicked the body and walked into the hall. In the hall stood a pair of men and women. The tall leopard-eyed man held a large sword with an iron ring in front of Yekong. He slashed over and called out, "I'll deal with the demon, sister, you run away. You take care of your family, but when you kill others, you remember that others also have parents, brothers, sisters, and sisters. Yekong coldly hummed, the sword in his hand was just a chop, and the leopard-eye man immediately stood on the spot. When Yekong walked past his side, he saw that the big knife in his hand was broken, and the bare head suddenly cracked a blood seam. The three female tigers had forgotten to run away, and she gave a sting, then immediately fell on her knees, struck her head vigorously and said, "Do nt kill me. I can do everything. Look at me, my appearance is still good, with the protection of my brother, I haven't let Logozioki succeed, I'm still alive, I'll give it to the fairy now." The female tiger said to stand up, took off her pants suddenly, and removed all the trousers. The messy shading under the white belly was particularly prominent, but Yekong just glanced at it, raising his hand as a sword, splitting the female tiger in two, and the white body was immediately covered with blood. At this moment, in my eyes, there is only good and evil, no men and women. Those who mess with me have to pay the price, and women are no exception. Yekong finished speaking and yelled at the corner of the back of the palace, "Logozioki! Shoot it! You want to drag me with a male tiger, and then you try to make me pay attention to the crotch of the female tiger. Your goal is not to shoot the arrow at the opportunity. What? I stand still, let it shoot." Na Logozioki is also a heroic figure. He has been killing countless people for decades, but this is the first time he has encountered such an opponent. Whoever comes here is an understatement sword, a freehand sword, to kill you, I only use one sword. Logozioki was scared and shivered. His hands were trembling and his palms were sweating. Finally, in the face of such overbearing power, he collapsed. He knelt down suddenly, hoeing his head, "Xianxia spared my life, my Logozioki would always follow the Zishi master, saddle the horse and be a slave for the slave. Oh, I got this bow by chance in this mountain, and gave it to Xian teacher, and, there are dozens of women behind me, and countless gold and silver, and, ah no. Slave. Laozi has never used male slaves." Yekong snorted coldly, put away the sword, took out the soul of 100 souls, and collected Logozioki's ghost, not even giving him a chance to give birth. Yekong stole the green longbow and came to the backyard. It was found that many women were imprisoned here. These women were robbed to the mountain. As Logozioki's lady in the village, if she was not Luchin, she was afraid of her own woman. "Be among them. Logozioki is already ambushed, you are all free," Yekong said with a wave of his hand. But the subsequent scene made Yekong frown again. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 466. 4 or 60. But the subsequent scene made Yekong frown again. I saw a woman coming out with a child. The child was young but had the same face shape as Logozioki. When Yekong tilted his head, the child's eyes shot viciously. Cut the grass without removing the roots, and the vernal equinox blows again, Yekong relentlessly, chopped the sword again. Less lean, the gold-winged ants have all returned, Yekong stole the gold-winged ants, let the women wait, and went into the thief's den. But there was nothing in Yekong that interested him, that is, weapons, grain, and miscellaneous things. There were hundreds of thousands of silver. Yekong rolled away the silver and found a green jade stamp pressed under the box. Yekong picked it up, and then he walked out of the warehouse. He had planned to distribute some silver to let the women leave, but this was a wilderness. The women were afraid that they would die in the mountains before going out. Yekong threw out the flying sword, zoomed in, took the women, and brought Xiaofeng Wolf King again, and then hung in midair to drink. Look at the people below. The robbers seized by Du Tufeng, a total of 2,185 people, have all been killed. The killer Yun Fuzong Li Hizi, if there is a disobedient, avenger, hatred, go to Wuku Yun Fuzong directly to find me, I will give you a break. Yekong was standing in the sky, with a mighty power, like a god, and there was a remnant that happened to be not on the mountain, and he was scared of courage. Yekong took the flying sword, sent the women to the nearby county, distributed them some silver too, and let them disperse on their own. The women saw the man being fierce, the children killed, and they were frightened in their hearts. On the way back, Deo kept silent. Yekong laughed, still angry for me killing the child. Yekong stood on Fijian, looking at the distance, said lightly, "Some people say that Yekong is cruel, some people say I am sorry, in fact I am me. I have my rules, that is to distinguish between the enemy and me. Distinguish between good and evil. To my friends, Yekong can disregard everything, even if the gods are extinct, I have no regrets. Regarding the enemy, even if he begged again, there is no help but I will be as ruthless as the autumn wind sweeps the leaves. Although the child is young, although his mother was snatched up the hill by Lugozyuki, but he is the son of Lugozyuki, this is a fact that no one can change. He will not thank me for saving his mother, he only hates me because his father was killed. When he grows up, he is helpless to me, but it may harm my family, so he must not be spared." Seeing that Deo was still silent, Yekong angered, "My way, I have already decided. What I am going to do must be bloody. If you do nt want to go all the way with me, leave yourself." Deo actually figured it out, but because of his face, when he heard Yekong getting angry, he even cried. Although she had infinite strength as a dragon, after all, she was a little girl's temperament, and when she heard that an adult didn't want her, she of course cried. "My son, I'm wrong, sorry, Deo will not be willful anymore," Deo said with tears. Yekong released Deo, and she did not grow large, but was held by Yekong like a kitten. She wiped her tears and asked, "My son, what is your path and what you have to do?" Yekong caressed her head, and looked at the iron ore mine that was getting closer. He smiled slightly, but his eyes were extremely firm, and said, "One day, I want this mountain to bow its head, and this water flows backwards. I want this world to become the world of cultivation in my heart." Back to Miner's village. The hall was still drinking, and Yekong went out without alarming them. Walked straight back to the room and saw that Luchin and Xiaohong were looking forward, not only did not take off their clothes, Xiaohong's stripped clothes were all put on. Yekong furiously said, "Okay, you are not obedient. I asked you to take off and wait for me. You are all still dressed. Do you not believe in your husband's strength?" "I'm not worried about you yet." The two women whispered a word, and they were relieved to see him return. They took off their clothes and hid into the quilt, only a small head was giggling at someone. "Relax, my husband is no better now than I was before. I am a real human being now. What a few grass crocodile is, it's not enough for me to kill a few immortals." Yekong didn't wait any longer and went straight to his clothes. Into the quilt together, the scenery is really a spring water, a house in spring. This gunfight fought straight into the evening, and the two girls couldn't stop begging for mercy, and then someone sent out the last liquid of life and lay on the couch. After Luchin enjoyed the aftertaste and calmed his emotions, he asked, "That Lugozyuki's martial arts is extraordinary. That green bow is even more evil. How did you defeat it?" Xiaohong also got up halfway and asked, "Yeah, that bow is awesome. The arrows are all shot with ripple-like brilliance. It is terrible, Xianggong. Are you fighting him for 300 rounds? Yekong smiled, pinched the little red bean with his hands, and made Xiaohong scream, then laughed, "Fight with him for 300 rounds. Fight with you 300 rounds are almost the same. He's kind of messy." After Yekong finished speaking, he groaned again, "It's a bit strange, I've seen it, Lugozyuki is clearly immortal, not an immortal, according to the truth, he can't use the immortal's instruments, can't urge, how can you use that green bow?" Yekong said, crawled out of the bed, took his storage bag, and took out the green bow and the arrows above it. "I'll take a look at what the bow is." Yekong lay on the couch. "First of all, the arrow is a very common yan arrow, very ordinary." Yekong threw it aside, and then looked at the green long bow. "The green long bow is about 2 meters long and feels very large. Take it in your hand and take up half of the large bed. The shape of the long bow is strange, and there are exaggerated reliefs on the upper and lower sides of the bow, such as flying wings, spreading wings, which are very public and make people like it at first glance. The most strange thing is that the long bow has no bowstring, and the bowstring is a piece of wood with thick fingers." Lu Qingkai said, "I have also practiced bows and arrows, but this bow is too strange. The bowstring is elastic, so that the arrow can be shot. But this bow is a thin piece of wood. Is the wood flexible?" Unfortunately, not as she thought. The thick finger wood is very hard, even harder than steel, and it has no elasticity at all. "Xiangong, don't you just find a bow to fool us? We saw Luo Zioqi use the green bow with his own eyes. If it is such a wooden bow, how can he shoot an arrow at Zioqin?" Xiaohong had doubts. "Well, it's this bow. At that time, Luo Zioqi wanted to use this bow to secretly count me. I didn't pay attention to how he opened the bowstring at that time. It was a bit evil." What makes Yekong feel evil is not the bowstring, but the bow, which is not a magic weapon at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 467. 467 Immortals. General instruments, according to the different spiritual powers contained in them, are divided into lower quality instruments, medium quality instruments, top quality instruments, and extreme quality instruments. Of course, sometimes there are special magic instruments. When you do NT use it, you see and feel the aura running in it. This magical instrument can make people look away, but even if it is activated by spiritual force, it will respond. Strangely, this green longbow actually resisted spiritual power. Yekong couldn't urge it at all. When the spiritual power passed, it would rebound. "You wait, I'll ask Chen Baixuan." Yekong didn't tell them about Huan Quan's ancestors, so they just knew Chen Baixuan. "I don't know who is master or who is a disciple." Xiao Hong, a once clever mouth girl, couldn't help laughing. Yekong also laughed. "Yeah, I'm a better apprentice than I am." He let the two women take a break, finished dressing their hair, hung up their storage bags, and walked out of the room. It was already evening, and Huan Quan's ancestors were eating dinner again, just as Yekong walked in. Everyone in the room laughed, probably laughing at someone from lunch to dinner. "It's still immortal." Lu Yi couldn't help making fun of him. "Yeah, I'll teach you one man and one hand female maiden techniques. What mortals can use to ensure that you also become tyrannical, sweeping the squares and whipping 10,000 girls," Huan Quan ancestor said with a big pig's foot. Everyone looked at an ancestor with a surprised expression, and probably all thought, "This is a child. How can we understand it better than us?" Xiaoying had to slap his little husband under the table, and said, "What do you say? Remember your identity." Huan Quan's ancestors never talked, and said, a touch of oil on his mouth, "That's it, you don't have to learn it." Lu Jun and Lu Yi immediately laughed, knowing that the little boy is also extraordinary. "Look back, still have to learn, although it is not currently used." "Well," the scholar said, "well, and prepared for it." Yekong sat down and laughed. "To learn, of course, to learn. When you look back, you will marry the widows and sisters. I will host the wedding for you." Lu Jun and Lu Yi were a little embarrassed, blushing and whispering, "It's all from a small family and a small family. Just give me a gift for the wedding, and everyone will just have a meal." Yekong laughed and didn't speak, but he had long thoughts in his heart. Lu Jun and Lu Yi treated themselves like loved ones. How could their wedding be handled properly? However, he did not come here for the purpose of saying this. After drinking 2 glasses of wine, he took Huang Quan's ancestor out of the hall and came to a small room behind him. Putting down a sound insulation ban, Yekong took out the longbow and showed it to Huang Quan's ancestors. Originally Huang Quan's ancestors were very dissatisfied with someone who interrupted his eating and drinking, but when he saw the strangely long green bow, his eyes widened and he was surprised. "Oh, good things, good things. Where are you from? Got it? I killed some thieves at noon just now, and snatched them from the thief leader." Yekong also said, "What kind of magic weapon is this? Why can a thief be used by a mortal man, but not by a cultivator? I let out the spiritual power, and it did nt by it. I encountered this kind of thing for the first time, for fear of refining." Huang Quan's ancestors were shining with a pair of eyes, looked back and forth, and looked up and said, "You know what the fart is, you just know this, and go out and be laughed to death. This is a magic weapon. If you can use spiritual force to urge you to stop practicing and just ascend." Yekong didn't understand, and asked, "What the is this thing? Don't sell it." Huang Quan's ancestor smiled and said a word that shocked Yekong. "If my ancestors read me right, this should be a fairy. Immortal." Even Yekong was stunned. The immortal was used by the immortals of the upper realm. That power is more powerful than the magic weapon. It can be said that any immortal will provoke it. In spite of the rain, let alone the ancestors of the Yuanying infants, even during the distracting period, the cultivators of the refining period will chase wildly. Huang Quan's ancestor carefully looked at this huge green longbow again, and then sighed, "The world has fallen, and the pearl is dusty. After 100,000 years, no one knows the fairy, and finally becomes a thief. Weapons, what a tragedy." Yekong thought about it right, indeed, because the fairy wares that existed in the world were almost extinct these years, so no one recognized them. And Na Luoxiaping usually did not dare to provoke the immortal, and the immortal was not interested in him, so he passed down the immortal, and finally cheaped himself. "How does that fairy urge?" Yekong asked again. "I think it's driven by immortality." Huang Quan's ancestor thought about it and said, "This bow is so strange. At that time, some people also got the immortal sword from the upper bound. That can be driven by spiritual power. Although the power is less than 10%, it is still much better than the ordinary magic weapon. Why doesn't this bow pay for spiritual power?" Yekong suddenly thought that many items need to be identified by blood. "Is this the same as the green longbow?" Huang Quan's ancestor nodded. "You can try." Yekong quickly took out the small sword weapon, cut his finger, and dripped a drop of blood. A surprising thing happened, and I saw the longbow coughing into the back of Yekong's hand. Look at the back of the hand, there is a totem with a long green bow, as if it is tattooed, so delicate. "Is this the confession of the Lord?" Yekong looked at the tattoo on the back of his hand. It looked pretty good, but he was depressed, he didn't know how to take out the bow. He hurriedly used endoscopy to check his body, but all the meridians in Ki Izifu looked, no. Yekong didn't know where the thing had gone, nor how to call it out. He was so depressed, he thought he had got a big baby, so he didn't need to say anything, and he couldn't get out of him. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed, "Did you get into your bird? Haha, it will come out when you do something right away. Go to you, do you think the immortal is the oral solution of the source of life?" Yekong cursed, and asked uneasily, "No side effects?" "Oh, I said you're a stupid boy, you know a little bit about it." The old ancestor Huang Quan always liked to curse, the more he cursed, the more important the words behind him were. "I only listened to Huang Quan's ancestors again, since this fairy ware recognizes the Lord, it's only good for you, and not bad. What a great immortal edge, you should and thank God. Although it is currently useless, but I believe one day, it will come out." Yekong was relieved when he heard this, and murmured in his heart, He was so strenuous with this bow, why can Luo Zioki Yuja mortal use it? Suddenly he thought of the jade Cambodia in the robber warehouse. To the reader. On Monday 7th, Taoist friends put up a recommendation ticket on the brick. Well, why not 10? Not one day last week, the brick set a new record high, and 200 was even more distant. People never broke out. Bricks are better than mine. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 468. Fun for 4 or 6 days. Yekong thought of the jade camouflage in the robber's warehouse, quickly took it out, explored with his spiritual knowledge, and immediately understood why Luo Zioki could be used. Cutting meat and serving swordsmanship. I don't know if this gongfa was invented by the unfortunate predecessor, saying that some magical instruments or fairy wares, different treasures, are spiritual. These treasures are difficult to recognize, so mortals or cultivators who want to use these treasures must use their own bodies and their own blood to contribute to the treasures to obtain temporary use rights. These treasures are spiritual, and if you are so sincere, you will be temporarily committed to you. But depending on how sincere you are, it will let you use a certain number of times and time. Yekong thought of Luo Zioki's one-eyed one. Obviously, in order to use this green longbow, this guy dug himself an eye and dedicated it to the longbow, so he had the right to use it. This Luo Zioki is really a ruthless character. In order to gain strength, he has to glance at himself, which is really amazing. Yekong suddenly thought, wouldn't this longbow want his own eyes too? No, how can I become a one-eyed dragon? Huang Quan's ancestor gave him a kick and cursed, it's stupid to say, that cutting the meat and serving the sword is to recognize the Lord. This fairy bow now recognizes you as the Lord. What are you afraid of? I believe it sooner or later, you will naturally wake up, and then you will be bullish. Forget it, I don't expect it to be bullish, as long as it is harmless to my body, don't my blood in my body and my spirit. Yekong suddenly remembered, wasn't there a fairy in his body? Why not try it? However, the immortality is the same as the immortal bow. It does not buy the immortal at all and wants to mobilize me. There is no way. Yekong had been engaged for a long time, and he had no choice but to shake his head. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed and cursed, don't worry about the sky, frown, you don't know how much mold you have lost, in fact, you have made a lot of money. This fairy is not an ordinary fairy, but it is still spiritual. You have a big fairy. I hope so. Yekong only smiled. On the moon, there was a busy voice of miners in the distance. I saw in the courtyard that the candle light on a new spot in front of the classic window sill exudes a dim light, making the woman at the table in front of the window more beautiful. She burst into a cloud, and behind her head, she showed that she was not a young girl. Thinking about it, when the door rang, Yekong walked in with a smile. You're not in Ziokan Ziahong's room. Why come to Aunt Feng's room? Although Feng Xiniang said so on her mouth, she betrayed her expression. Time flies, the sun and the moon are like shuttles. The days passed, Yekong spent in complete relaxation. These days are happy and ridiculous. In addition to eating and drinking during the day and night, they are with me and their wives. Lu Qin, Xiao Hong, Feng Si Niang, and the pair of sisters named Xiao Yu and Xiao Lian, Yekong was trapped in Wenro Township. Of course, he also did some things, such as paved the way for the miners and helped the brothers of the Lu family manage the wedding. At the wedding, Lu Qin and Xiao Hong looked at the beautiful bride. Yekong took their hands and said, relax, you will have a grander and grander wedding in the future. In an instant, more than a month passed, and it was getting closer to the date of Whitsong. It should be said that this month's joy of heaven is fascinating and addictive, but I don't know why, Yekong felt that he had a subconscious desire to leave. To the reader. On Monday 7th, Taoist friends put up a recommendation ticket on the brick. Well, why not 10? Not one day last week, the bricks set a new record high, and 200 was even more distant. People never broke out. Bricks are better than mine. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 469. 469 My Path. Everyone says to cultivate suffering. How do you know that happiness seeks in suffering? In fact, it did not take too long to not practice, but Yekong felt it for a long time, and often had the urge to open up and practice. Yekong knows that cultivation has become his habit and a part of his body, and he cannot adapt to life without cultivation. A woman's body is intoxicating, and the warmth of her family is calming, but Yekong feels that these cannot keep herself. He is even more yearning for the boring refining aura, feeling a little strengthening of strength. What can excite him is only every breakthrough in the realm, the improvement of ability, new magical instruments, new magical power. Let him most expect the thing is, the Daquan opens a new page, and Howling Wolf King evolved to a higher level. None of these can be given to him here. He used to look forward to returning home so much, but when he returned home, he found that he had adapted to the life of immersing himself in hard work and adding a sword to cut the enemy under the sword. Cultivation, breakthrough, put more monks on your feet, practice, breakthrough, and then. Yekong knew that what he wanted was such a life. Mother, Ziokan, my holiday is coming up. You should pack up and follow me back to Yunfuzong, Yekong said this day. But Chen Juniang shook her head and said, Son, you are old, and you have the ability to move around the quartet. We will not drag you on, and we do not want to go out and toss. Although this is a poor mountain ditch, but here the mountains are clear, the mother is not gone, mother is going to grow old here. Those miners, and Diao family, they are all good. Mother doesn't want to leave here, you go back and check back often. Yekong was anxious. How can you not leave? I am here to take you back to Wu country. How can your safety be guaranteed here? I will spend a month on the road every time I return. You come back to Yunfuzong with me. But who knows that Chen Juniang is so heartfelt. Haoren Yekong said that she just wants to stay here, which leaves Yekong upset. Yekong pulled Ziokan and Xiaohong again, and wanted them to persuade the old lady to change her mind. Lu Qin said, we can go to persuade the mother, but we also don't want to leave. Here the mountains and rivers are beautiful, the climate is pleasant, and the miners here are honest. If we go, who will treat them, and most importantly, then Yunfuzong is a school of cultivating immortals. All the cultivators live in it. What do you let us mortals live in? Like birds in a cage, there is nothing to do but eat and drink lazar every day. We should not live that kind of life. In the end, even the brothers of the Lu family didn't want to leave. They just became home, wanted to have children, wanted to make the mine bigger, wanted to make a lot of money, wanted to. Yekong really wants to tell them that these are meaningless. After a century, all the status, children, and money must be left behind. You are doing a meaningless stupid thing. But people are like this, knowing that it doesn't make sense, he still has to do, this is his ideal, he is happy, he feels comfortable, no matter how hard to eat, no regrets. No one can deprive others of their ideals, nor can they stop others from working. Yekong looked at the yellow paper note to the miner, and then sent a smiling Lu Qin. He figured it out. The Tao is different. Everyone has a different Tao. His own Tao is cultivation and ascension. And their way is to live a mortal life, try their best to help others, and live a happy life every day. Healing a patient, sewing old clothes and earning money, they are happy and satisfied. If they were forced to go to Yunfuzong together, every day they would stay in their own caves to see Baiun, it would not be the life they wanted, and they would not be happy. Well, you all stay. I will come back as soon as I have time, but you have to promise me, and when I have a way for you to cultivate your immortals, you must follow me. Yekong finally compromised. Chen Juniang laughed, that's right. My son, aren't you afraid of death when you are a mother? In fact, the mother also wants to live for a long time. You can see your son, your grandson, those are the blood of the mother, it is the blood of the generals, and they will be happy to watch them. In fact, Chen Juniang wanted to go with Ye Kong. She didn't care if she was bored at home every day. She had nothing to do here. But everyone stayed, and she could only sigh resentfully, and then haunt someone day and night, thinking about someone making her belly move, and now she has something to do. Chen Juniang didn't want her worship sister to engage with her son. Isn't that messy? But there is no way, after all, the son is old and romantic, she pretended to be invisible. Everything is settled, but the key question now is who protects them. Just when he was puzzled, someone volunteered. Huang Quan's ancestor said, "Forget it, I'll stay, Xiaoying doesn't want to leave. There is no aura of Yunfuzong here, but it's enough for me. I have a foundation. It's okay to practice here. But if you don't go back, Baiji won't be assured." Ye Kong frowned. Huang Quan's ancestor smiled bitterly. "Actually, I don't want to go back. This is the reason. My ancestor has lived freely for so many years. Now I have many mothers, and I can't say. But your original skills are gone, and you are now a fourth layer of refining guess. If it really comes to a formidable opponent, I'm afraid you can't handle it." Ye Kong worried again. Huang Quan's ancestor laughed, "Don't worry about it. After a month of hard work, I will arrange this short-distance teleportation array. I will arrange it when I look back. If we come to the opposite party, we can teleport. Go." Ye Kong thought about it, this is a way, and after thinking about it, this is the only way. However, he was still uneasy about the current strength of Huang Quan's ancestors. Finally, after careful consideration, he decided to leave Dao as well. There is Dao here, even if he is in the early Yuan period, it doesn't matter. Dao is naturally unwilling, and she also hates being with people like Huang Quan's ancestors, but in the end, Dao was suppressed by someone's force. In fact, Ye Kong also wanted to take Dao to Kangbei, but he thought that he had a magic weapon and a spell, and there were many teammates. It didn't matter whether he took Dao or not. It is also important that Dao has formed a relationship with him as the main pet. From a long distance, Ye Kong can sense Dao. Moreover, as a mutant beast, Dao senses very far. As long as Ye Kong crosses the Hongduan Mountains to the border of Angguo, he can sense whether Dao is nervous, excited or calm. On the last night, Ye Kong brought several women into the room. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 470. Don't forget. Okay. You guys have a baby, I give a reward. Ye Kong laughed happily. Then what reward do you give? Xiao Hong asked with a raised belly. What reward? Ye Kong frowned. What reward do you want? The women looked down and thought. The last youngest girl of the youngest age said, Xianxia, we are all mortal women, we will grow old, we will get sick, and we will die, we can't accompany the fairy, or even the fairy we will not see us next time, what we want is just to hope that the immortal master will not forget us, and not to forget the night, even if we die later, please ask the immortal master occasionally. There is a girl named Xyli. What a simple wish, what a good girl, the biggest wish is just not to forget. I will never forget, neither will you die, no. Believe me, I will work hard. Ye Kong hugged Xyli's body and sucked her little mouth tightly. I spent so fast all night, it was a bright sunny day, the sun was bright, the spring was brilliant, and the talent was blue. Ye Kong bid farewell to the old mother, stepped on the flying sword, and embarked on the journey again. This is my way, I have no complaints and no regrets, I want to achieve the ideal in my heart, not for myself, but only for loving me and the people I love. 3 days later, Ecchi came to a square city in the north of Huangzhou City, which is the square city of the Xianxian family. Huangzhou Wanjia is not far from Fang City. Ecchi had planned to return to Wanjia for a visit. By the way, he looked at Lu Ying, and just happened to pass by Fang City. He has not forgotten the mission, Millennium. After paying the entrance fee, he entered Fangxi. The size of this city is not large, and there are many children from Wanjia inside. They are all wearing clothes with cuff marks. If you want to buy spiritual grass and trees, it is the semicolon of Qingminggu. Ecchi walks into the semicolon of Qingminggu in Fangxi. When a real person from Zuji came in, a clerk greeted him immediately, "Welcome the real person to drive, I wonder if there is anything I can do to help you." Ecchi replied, "I want to buy a millennial plant, it is best to have fruit." "Oh, please wait a moment, I'll check it out." The guy rushed to the background to check. Taking advantage of his buddy to find the goods, Ecchi looked at the situation in the Qingminggu trade house, and saw that there are mainly disciples of Wanjia, all wearing clothes with marks on the sleeves. However, there are exceptions. A beautiful build-up female nun wears a black gauze, facing back to Ecchi and picks the spirit grass. Ecchi couldn't help but take a closer look. This nun's dress was very special. It was the first time that the Kangnan mainland was dressed as a black woman. Ecchi, who went from the earth, still likes women wearing black clothes, especially underwear, which can show the exceptional whiteness of women's skin. The woman was wearing a transparent black gauze. You can see a black bust with a suspender in it. If it were not for the length of the black skirt, Ecchi would have thought that this woman was also a modern girl from the earth. Ecchi turned his gaze back and began to look at the linko on the counter. Suddenly, there was a millennium of Yunwuzai on the shelf. Ecchi hurriedly reached for it. He didn't want to buy this Yunwuzai because he sold it to the Yi family firm, so he wanted to compare it with what he cultivated and how it grows naturally. Ecchi was looking at it, and he heard a woman's crisp and pleasant voice from behind. "Deo, I want to buy Yunwuzai too. I just watched the leaves over there so I didn't have time to get Yunwuzai." Ecchi looked back and saw that the black nun was standing behind him. It was just the back, now it is the front. Very beautiful girl, especially the grin, the white teeth are bright and very touching. "Oh, there are also Yunwuzai, why don't Taoists take it?" Ecchi asked. "Daiu, is this the first time you bought Yunwuzai?" The girl smiled softly again. "I teach you, this Yunwuzai is also kind." Although a gold thread on Yunwuzai's skirt represents 1,000, however, there are differences in the species. The rhizomes of the plant you caught are red, while the other rhizomes are white. This shows that your Yunwuzai is an excellent species planted on the dead wood of the millennium. It is also 1,000 years old, but the place where it can be planted is ordinary wood. The efficacy of the medicine is good or bad. Do you know? Oh, there is still this difference. Ecchi also compared Yunzi in his hand with Yunzi in the counter. This is indeed the case, and depending on the price, this strain is much more expensive. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 471. 47,110,000 Jiafang City. I just do nt know what kind of business he sold to the Yi family, NND, which made Gao Yuan Yang's old boy make a lot of money. Teached underneath. Ecchi looked at the bright-eyed girl again, feeling interesting in her heart, and couldn't help but say, the girl wants to buy this Yunwuzai, and also wants to buy underneath. If the girl doesn't teach underneath, maybe next I bought another one, but the girl said, but she couldn't bear to replace it, and here, this red-stemmed plant is the only one, and I got it first. Ah, the woman in black opened her moist mouth. Yeah, she kindly taught the other party to identify Yunwuzai, but in the end she couldn't buy it herself. The woman in black seemed to have just come out and had no idea. When she saw that Yunwuzai, which should have been bought by herself, was unwilling to be transferred. She only smiled bitterly. That's okay, let's talk about it later. In fact, Yekong didn't buy this thing, but just thought that it would be dangerous to let this black woman have a long memory and go out. She was kind and did not have a sense of self-protection. Just when Yekong just wanted to say no, others spoke. This Taoist, this is what you are not. People clearly teach you the method of identifying Yunwuzai. You have learned it? Without saying a word of gratitude, you refuse to transfer Yunwuzai. Its behavior really makes my generation unwilling. Shame. I saw a monk wearing a white coat of Ecchi standing next to the two. This man looked like he was in his 20s and was slightly fat, but fortunately he was tall and didn't look fat, but looked valiant. Extraordinary look. Yekong wanted to return Yunwuji to the black nun, but when a bite of Cheng was killed on the road, he was upset and said, "Dare to ask my friends, this business is on a first-come first-served basis? Get it first and buy it, why not?" This girl took the initiative to teach me the technique of recognition, and I am grateful for it, but I have no obligation to let it to her. If she does not teach me, I will also buy this Yunwuzai, which does not occupy what is cheaper. The tall fat man wanted to see Yi Yong to win the favor of the girl. He didn't expect the sharp black fangs in front of him. He couldn't refute it, and immediately said, "Dao, you can see clearly, this is my Wanjiafang city, it is the steward of the city, I will sell whoever I sell." The steward Yekong whispered and laughed, "Although Fangshi is Wanjiafang, here is Qingming business. Do you speak on behalf of Qingming business? Does Qingming business not listen to you? Yes, you will drive them out of the Fang market? In fact, Qingming Company and Fangshi City have a mutually beneficial relationship. It really drives away Qingming Company to cause even greater losses to Wanjia. In addition, Wanjia is in the gap between Linjiao Mountain and Qingming. If they offend Qingming, they will be in bad shape." The tall fat man was full of anger, but did not dare to interface, but said, "The shopkeeper of this firm and I are friends, I will not let him sell it to you. Then I just have to ask Shi Dingfeng, is his Fangshi in Qingming doing this business without any rules?" "Cut. You can see Master Shi Dingfeng," the tall fat man sarcastically. "Then I can see you Wan Jinkan at least." "You dream. How did we meet you as parents, a small casual repair?" While talking, someone suddenly walked in from outside. It was Li Wei, the foundation building monk who was in the mine last time. Li Wei came to Fang City, but he didn't find the Fang City supervisor. He heard that he was here, and he came. Who knows? As soon as I came in, I saw Yekong. The skin is black and easy to recognize. Yeah. Li Zhenren, why don't you say a word when we come to our city? We will send someone to greet you. Li Wei and Wan Yang are different. Li Wei really admired Yekong for his five-body plunge to the ground. Using the early construction of the foundation to beheaded monk Ji Den created a magical word. He asked about such a thing, he had never heard of it, and when he looked at Yekong's Ziawei, he was surprised. Li Zhenren also broke through, "Like me, congratulations, congratulations." Yekong laughed, and replied, "Last time, the ancestor of your gate Jingquan came to thank you, and just now I was breaking through, so I missed it. This time I came to visit the ancestor of Jingquan specifically." Yekong said, and glanced proudly at a tall fat man. "How's it going, guys, didn't shake you?" The tall fat man and several tens of thousands of monks behind him were a bit surprised. We must know that Jinkan's ancestors had the highest cultivation in the later period, and they were also the only ancestors in Wanjia's current period. How did the ancestors of Jingquan take the initiative to visit a monk in the early stage of foundation construction? "Brother Li Wei, what is going on here?" the tall fat man asked from the stand of his brother. "Brother Zhang Mingqiang, let me introduce you. This is the real Li Hizi who rescued me and brother Wan Yang in the iron ore cave. He used the repair of the second floor of the base to kill a corpse elder, a real person who builds a base, and a zombie equivalent to the late Jidan. The real person Li Heza can be called the pride of our monks. After listening to Li Wei's introduction, the tall fat man named Zhang Mingqiang and the monks behind him all showed a surprised look. They had heard about it for a long time, and they were still very unbelieving. Who knew who the real person was? Is he? He looks so young, is he so powerful? I heard that it is still a casual repair. Surely Lincoln is excellent. Everyone's whispering made someone very comfortable. Ye Kong was just a hooligan, there was nothing to cultivate, and his self-satisfied expression was undoubtedly revealed, and his eyes were closed with Zhang Mingqiang, and then he went to the black nun. But Ye Kong had a look, but was surprised to see that it was not admiration, envy, or surprise that appeared on the black woman's face, but a touch of black gas flashed on her white face. Right in Ye Kong's heart, Nu Xiu's face returned to normal, making Ye Kong think he was wrong. Master Li Wei, you must not be blinded by someone's words, some people are just mouth-watering. Zhang Mingqiang did not believe that the little real man in the early period of the foundation building could kill Jidan's ancestors, guessing that 80% of Li Wei was being this blackbird lied. Suspected of his idol, Li Wei was furious, and he did not have a good opinion of this strong brother. He immediately replied, "Brother Zhang Mingqiang, this is what Li Wei has seen in person." Brother Wan Yang has been excitedly retreat. "How come you are blind?" "I just don't believe it anyway," Zhang Mingqiang annoyed. "If you lose face in front of the beauty and your hands today, you don't have to confuse." Ye Kong smiled lightly, "Do you believe it or not, and do my bird business. There are too many toads who want to eat swan meat these days. I'm afraid that the swan meat will not be eaten, but they will be thrown on their feet."